All right, welcome everyone. It's 12:30, so we'll get started, but there's so many of you here. This is awesome. Allegra, can I have you get your help? So the first thing I have for you is I have some handouts for you, and the first part is a little quiz I need you all to take. Yeah, you know what, Tandy, I brought these pens. But could you maybe help? I printed 25, and we're pretty close. So if we get too tight, maybe one per couple. But if we have extra, I'm happy to have everybody take one. But we're going to start with the quiz, and then we'll jump into our class today. Virginia, was that you that called me this morning?
Do you have any that work?
Oh, really? Didn't work? Oh.
Okay.
Good. Terrific. Yeah, so, good. So everybody got one at this point?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, at least look along, and then we'll have one for Steve and whatever. They're old pens, but I had a lot of them, so hopefully they work okay. All right, so we'll go along. Go ahead and feel free to keep working on your quizzes there while we go through this. The beginning stuff, a lot of you who were here last time already know. But for those of you who weren't, I just want to run through it really quickly. This is a class that we've started to, twice a month, every second and fourth Wednesday, to work on technology and work on the questions that you have about technology. For those of you who don't know, my name is Rick Wilson. I'm one of the lay leaders here at the church, but I'm also a certified consultant for Apple. And as I've said before, while I'm not, we're not going to just talk about Apple right here. Well, we're not just going to talk about Apple. Yes, I am biased. It's true. And I am a real tech geek. It's my passion. And why are we going to talk about technology and learning to love technology? It's because there's all of these things out there that have scary or unusual names. And we want to demystify them and show you how simple they actually are so that you can use this information and use this technology comfortably, safely, and have a good time with it. Now we're going to, let's see, come on. Oh, taking a while to pick up here. So we're going to try to give you good information, have clear communication between us so that you have a good understanding of what we're doing here today. Today we're talking about the internet and email and security and safety while you're there. The next time, I think, as long as we get far enough today, we'll be talking about social media, Facebook, Twitter, and the like. And that will probably be led by Allegra and Sarab, who know a lot more about it than I do. And then beyond that, we've got a lot of other subjects to do, but I was also thinking, and we'll kind of take an informal poll at the end, that it might be nice maybe in that fourth time to have you just submit your questions ahead of time, and let's have a free-for-all. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about on the spot. Okay, so has everybody completed the quiz? We'll be coming to that later. And these packets that I've given you are going to be yours to take home, and we're going to cover the material in them today, but it's it's in depth for you to take home. Understanding the internet. Now, I didn't put up the picture, darn it. Now, Some of you may know Senator Ted Stevens had a great description of the internet. Do you remember what it was? The internet is a series of tubes. I actually have some great pictures of that, and I forgot to put them up here. Which is, of course, absolutely not correct at all. But he was trying to find an analogy to say how things move around. But the problem is there's really never been a communication method like the internet, and I'll explain why. It started back in 1969. The research started in the early 60s, but in 69 is when it really hit, when all these universities and research facilities would have a lot of computers, and within the lab, they could share data between the computers pretty much by moving a hard drive from one to the next. But sometimes they would have a rudimentary network, a single cable that would go from one computer to one other computer. Or they would have a terminal situation where they would have a large central computer, and coming out of that they would have a bunch of screens and keyboards placed around, but that all fed back to the central computer. But the problem is the Department of Defense was trying to work with all these universities and research facilities to develop new technologies, and they couldn't share data very well between them. So on October 29th, 1969, the first strands of the internet were tested when UCLA and the Stanford Research Institute had a rudimentary network strung between them, a single wire that went between the two places, and they were able to hook up their computers. And they got on the phone to each other, and at UCLA they pressed the letter L, and they said, "Do you see L?" And boom, it popped up on the screen. And then they said, "Oh, yep, we see it. G, yes," and then the computer crashed. So, a lot like today. Well, once they had gotten this one connection working well, there were a lot of other places that needed to be connected. So they started to find other places in the United States that needed to be connected, in Washington, in Massachusetts, in New York, Chicago, Dallas, Seattle. And then they had to connect them all. Now what this did is it started to create an unusual situation, because you started to get a mesh or a web. And this is where the idea of the World Wide Web comes from, this interconnected ability. Because while you might find that Stanford is connected to New York here, New York could relay that information to Boston or down to Dallas or over to Chicago. Now what this means for you is that today, when you send a piece of information from your computer or get a piece of information into your computer, such as a website, that website, for example, was sent to you over multiple different paths at the same time. They take one little piece of data and they chop it into a lot of little bits of data. And they send out multiple copies along all these pathways, and there are millions of these pathways these days. And they shoot them out there because what will happen is you'll go down one pathway and there'll be a traffic jam, too much data, and it'll get clogged up. And you'll go down another one and they'll have a power problem and it won't get through there. But they'll go down a third one and that one will get through. And maybe some of the packets, little bits, get through, and some of them don't, but they may get through on the other end. But all those pieces of your website have been broken down and numbered and sent out, and on the other end it goes, oh, there's piece number 2, number 4, 1, 6, 3, 5, oh good, now I've got it all. And then it shows it to you. This all happens in milliseconds, but it actually optimizes the speed at which things move around. So it's no longer a single point-to-point, but the ability to go along multiple paths and bounce around that makes the internet so unique. It allows certain areas to get very clogged, and automatically the pressure gets taken up elsewhere. So this, is almost indistinguishable from magic. Once you get into the math of it, works out great. But just to look at how well and how quickly this moves, when you consider that you can have video moving in real time across this, and it's being shunted around to so many different places, it's really incredible. So that is the rudimentary idea of the internet. In your house, you might have 2 computers. And those two computers both use the same internet connection. You might have DSL, you might have cable. And that cable modem is connected to the cable company, for example. And the cable company is connected into a larger backbone, which is one of these major routes. And that's how it's getting from your computer out to, to your modem, to the cable company, to the larger backbone. And on the other end, the process is reversed. We go from the big pipe to the little pipe, little pipe, little pipe. So when Ted Stevens was talking about the internet as a series of tubes, it's like the water system. You do have that big pipe that's coming over the hills to the north of us. But when it gets down here, it goes into a reservoir, and then from there it gets spread out. And it goes in smaller pipes to our neighborhoods, and then it goes in smaller pipes to our homes. And then inside our homes, it goes to even smaller pipes to your tap. So in that case, we can give Ted Stevens a little bit of a break. So that's the basic idea of the internet. Now, these are some of the best websites on the internet, and I want you to remember all these. Okay? Is that a problem? Well, as humans, we're not really designed to remember numbers this way, as something common that we do. We try to remember people's phone numbers, but we can only keep so many in our heads. But this is how the internet thinks. And it thinks in smaller bits of a larger part, of a larger part, and of a larger part. This is called a domain number, or an IP number. Well, fortunately, there's telephone operators. Because it used to be that you could call the operator and say that I need to reach Gordon Sheldall, or Gordon Short, excuse me. And I didn't have to know Gordon's number, but she could connect me to Gordon. Well, on the internet, when it goes out there, you can ask for a place, and it's going to translate it into one of these numbers, so that all the computers in the meantime, they all speak numbers really well. So for example, that first number there, that's Google. Everybody knows the word Google. They know the place Google. But if you say to the internet, I want to go to Google, the first thing it does is go out and figure out where the heck that is and send that number down and send your request. The next one, that's Yahoo, CNN, and NUMC. So interestingly enough, if you could remember that number and you type that right into your web browser, you would get to our web page. Because the computer would go, I know what that is. Thank you. You didn't make me translate. So that's another part that gets very confusing with people on the internet, is when we're trying to fix problems, those of us in the business have to understand this end of the things. But happily, you guys get to just use plain language. Okay. Now, email works in a lot of the same way that we just described. Matter of fact, it works very much like the regular postal system. So let's take an example of this. Good old snail mail. You want to write Fred a letter, so you get out a piece of paper and you write your message to Fred. And then what you do, you put it in an envelope, and on it you say who it's from, who it's to, and maybe you put a little happy birthday on the front of it, if it's Fred's birthday. Well, what is that to? It might be, or the from address, it would be, my name and an address and city and zip code. So that what happens is that when the letter goes out, they can decode where that needs to go. Does it need to go across the country? Does it need to go down the street? You're going to take that and you're going to put it in your mailbox. The postal carrier is going to come and get it, and they're going to take it to the post office. The post office is going to figure out where it goes, and on the other end, they're going to take it and put it in Fred's mailbox. And then Fred's going to take it and see who it's from and decide if he wants to open it or put it in the trash and read your information. Now, we all understand this. Everybody in this room knows how the postal system works. Well, it's exactly the same way that email works. When you're in your email program or you're in your browser doing email that way, the first thing you do is you create a new message and you type what it is that you want to say. But we don't necessarily have to put it in an envelope because right in the message they give us a place to say who it's to, who it's from, and what it's about. So it usually says to or recipient, from, sender, subject. From there, if I'm now sending that, my address would be rick@northridgeumc.org. This is the same as the postal address. I've got a name, I've got a street area, and I've got city, state, and zip, as far as the internet is concerned. This is called a top-level domain, .org, .com, .net, .edu. These are the big ones of the internet. And so the first thing that the mail server is going to do when it sees this message is it's going to read it backwards. It's going to say, oh, I need to send this to a .org server. And .org is going to look for Northridge UMC and figure out that number, where we're at. And then when it gets here, the server that deals directly with Northridge UMC is going to decide if Rick is a valid person at Northridge UMC. But it's the same thing. It's those same 3 lines of our regular address, just described in a computer fashion. That's what you're looking at. One of the #1 problems I have with my clients and their email is that they don't completely address it. They might say, you know, Fred at Google, google.com, right? Or they might say send it to Fred, but the computer may not know Fred, right? So you have to be careful. And they'll say that this, you know, they've sent it to 20 people. They might send out an announcement. And if one of those messages is bad, it'll hold up the whole thing. So this is where it becomes really critical that you make sure that you properly address your envelopes. Right? Same thing. I should have brought that one up. From here, it's going to go out to your local web server. So if you have, say, cable, it's going to go to the cable company, who's going to know to pass it on to the email provider. If you use Gmail, when you send out a message, it's going to go to your local company who's going to say, oh, your Gmail, and they're going to send it to Google, and it's Google's problem from this point out. Google's going to figure it out. So these are some of your providers: Google, Gmail, Roadrunner, AOL. If you have that, I'm sorry, and other things. Email provider is going to send it on to the mailbox of the person on the other end. They're going to read that address backwards and find out where it goes. That's going to come right into Fred's computer, and Fred's going to decide whether to read it or trash it, and then there's the information. One of the reasons why this step is really important is because you get to decide before you open the message whether it's something you want to read. That's what the subject is really good for, and the who sent it is really good for. Because you may look at that and immediately know it's something that you have no interest in whatsoever. Great, get rid of it. But understand that you're making a clear decision at this point of what you want to do next. Okay, so that is just a brief overview of how data moves around the internet and how your email moves around the internet. So we're going to talk a little bit about security. Now, security is a big concern for people because they don't understand what happens with their information. And there's a lot of stories coming up a lot of times about, you know, somebody's bank account was emptied out, somebody's identity was stolen, you know, this one website has been taking all your addresses. And these things do indeed happen. But the #1 thing you're going to remember about security on the internet is to use common sense. You all have it, you've all lived with it, and it applies just as much in the virtual world as it does in the real world. A lot of people say to me, you know, I don't want to buy anything on the internet because I'm afraid that my credit card data will get stolen. Your credit card data is 3 times as likely to be stolen in a restaurant than on the internet. And you are fully covered if there's any credit card fraud with these purchases. It's actually a very secure way to do it because whenever you do that, and I'm going to show you what to look for, there's actually a way to find out if your data is being sent in the clear, where anybody with the proper software could watch it as it goes by, or if it's being encrypted. And there's a really easy way to find out. Internet safety quiz. You all took it? So let's take a look at it and discuss what those answers are. All right, the internet gives us access to the many resources we couldn't otherwise come in contact with. True or false? True is exactly right. That's the best thing about the internet, is the wide variety of knowledge that is available to you. You have more knowledge available to you right now from your computer than the President of the United States did 15 years ago. Very short time. And it's just absolutely exploded. Now, it means you can find a variety of topics, and you can save them the trouble. Hey, making a dramatic entrance. So you can find an incredible variety of information on the internet, but some of it will not be trustworthy, right? So that's where we have to use our common sense by looking at who put that information together in the beginning. But it's a travel agent, a museum guide, an encyclopedia, so many, financial advisor, so many great things if you're willing to look. All right. Information on the internet can always be trusted to be factual. It wouldn't be online if it wasn't true. False, exactly. Thank you. Now, the internet is an open forum for everyone and anyone. Bias is the rule, not the exception. Okay? In posting. So, evaluate carefully all the information that you get on the internet. Now, again, if you're going to go to Encyclopedia Britannica, there's a provenance. You know where the information most likely came from. It's going to be more likely than Fred's House of Facts. But the interesting thing is that one of the places where bad information is so likely to be found is also one of the best places to find good information, and that's Wikipedia. And it's because it's the Wild West. It's self-policed. If somebody goes in there and tries to put up really stupid information, there's 20 people to bat them down, because people are very careful about that information. And it's funny because there's so many articles on there. There's millions of articles on Wikipedia, but everybody's got their babies that they're watching. And if you try to do something about Colt revolvers from the 1800s, you can bet that there's somebody watching who's going to, if you step wrong, they're going to call you out on it. So it's a very interesting place to go. Anything I send in my private email, IM or chat, cannot be seen by others? False. False, absolutely. There are ways to secure this information, but you never assume anything you send is purely private. And by the way, you also never assume that once somebody's done with it, it went away. Nothing ever goes away on the internet.
What is IM?
IM, instant messaging. Excuse me. So email, instant messaging, and actually instant messaging and chat are much kind of synonymous. I took, the quiz that you just took is from the Kentucky Board of Education, and I thought it was pretty good. It's got a few things I would have changed, but I decided to leave it intact because I appreciated their service. At the very largest level, there's somebody who's in charge of every website, every email account. So technically, they have the ability to look. If you've got the right software and the person who sent the message was using poor security, you can look into that. There are people who sit at Starbucks with their computers, ostensibly doing whatever their own work is, when it turns out their own work is seeing what you all are talking about and if you're sending your credit card numbers by. Because Starbucks is an open network, and it's not encrypted. But you can encrypt your own data as it goes by, and that's actually not so hard to do. But the main thing is to go, well, gee, I'm at Starbucks. Maybe this isn't the time to make that big purchase. Maybe I'll wait till I'm home when I have more security. Websites must have my permission to put online any personal information about me, like my phone number, address, or birthday. False, that's right. As you know, Facebook has definitely shown time and time again. And again, that's one of those places where it can be a wonderful asset and a wonderful tool, but you use it properly. You know, if you're going to put out all that information, simply assume that everybody's going to see it. There are safeguards on Facebook, and we'll talk about those next time, and ways that you can feel a lot more secure about who's seeing your data. But the unfortunate history of Facebook shows us that they will do a major upgrade and all of your settings will get reset. And all of your security goes boom, and if you don't know it, it's all out there again until you go lock it down. So you always have to do that. There's also a number of places you can go on the internet. For example, KYSafeschools.org, which is Kentucky Safe Schools. They keep a running list of who's got good security and who's got bad security. So it's kind of neat. Who are the violators? If I want to know something about a stranger that sends me an instant message, I can check their profile and trust the information. False. You're seeing a pattern. Do you remember this famous New Yorker cartoon? On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Some websites are now requiring that you give your actual information and they will verify it before you can be a part of their group. But most places, you can go on and they say, what do you want your username to be? And, and it can be I love birds, or it can be Steve Petty, but I may not be Steve Petty, and I can still put that in, right? So, yeah, a lot of us have been spoofed, is what it's called. A lot of times where somebody takes your identity. It's happened to a lot of us. It's happened to me. I have a big internet presence, so there are times when things show up and I go, that's not me, and I have to go figure out where that came from and lock it down. But it's very important, just like everything we said so far, think it through. Does it make sense that this person says who they are? Is there a way I could check? They say they're my friend from high school. Did I actually know anybody by that name in high school? Whatever it is. Think about what they're saying to you. Installing a virus checker on my machine will keep my PC safe. False. You want that to be true. It's not true. It's not true for two reasons. The number one reason is people don't update their computers. The virus companies do their best to keep up with the increasing load of new viruses and malware that are out there. And they try to track them and find ways to knock it down. But if you don't update your computer, update your spamware and update your virus software, they can't help you. You have to take an action. Now, they usually will, in an automated fashion, say, we have this available to you. But you have to say, yes, I'll do it, and no, I won't deal with it later. Now, excuse me. Depending on which source you look at, there are between 200,000 and 1 million known viruses for Windows. And if you consider that 20 years ago there were less than 100, it's moved very fast, and it will continue to do so. One thing that a lot of my clients like about the Mac is there are no known viruses at this time for the Mac. At this time. For 11 years, we've had a good run. And we don't want to assume that we will never have a virus. But at this point, we don't. And that's due to, depending again, who you ask. Apple has a smaller market share than Windows, 15% versus 80%. The system software, the way it's written, has more security in it. So whichever way you wish to believe, there is that difference. But we're not silly enough to assume that it will never happen. There is a series of what are called Trojan Horses that we'll talk about later for the Mac. There's about 10 of them. But they require your deliberate participation to infect your computer. So we'll talk about that. Putting blocking software on my child's PC will keep my child safe. So you're seeing a pattern here, aren't you? Blocking software by itself will never keep your child safe. And I actually have a problem with a lot of blocking software because hiding the fact that there are bad things in the world from people will not allow those people to learn about how to deal with bad things in the world. So I understand that there are places that are, it's easy to say, don't go there, don't go here. But as soon as you do that, you assume they're okay now. No, there are new places coming online all the time. There are new people with new identities coming online all the time. They can't all be blocked. The only way to block them all is to not have a computer at all. And to not have a computer in today's age is to be not in today's age. So common sense and training is where this comes in. This person just contacted me. Why? What possible reason would they have to contact me? It's an important question to have them ask. And what information should they give out? And the answer is very, very little, right? Ideally, they don't give out their real name. They could have a screen name. Penny's pal, right? Her name's Rebecca. So you have that. You never give out the phone number, never give out your email address, never give out your street address. How many of you give your social security number out to anybody on the street? Right. You don't want to give it out on the internet. You don't want to give out, when AOL contacts you and said, we need your password and your social security number because we're having problems with our system, no. No legitimate system will ever ask you for that information that way. You will go there and voluntarily give it, but they will never ask you for it because that's when you know that there's a problem. I can always trust emails and attachments I get from friends. False. There's a true coming up, really. New programs and viruses send out emails to everyone in your inbox, Windows at this moment, without their knowledge or consent. And this happens all the time. I had a client call me in tears about 2 months ago because all of her friends were getting Viagra ads from her. And she said, I can't believe this is so embarrassing. And I said, do any of your friends actually believe you would send them Viagra ads? No. It's part of today's world. You all get mail in your mailbox that you didn't ask for. Okay? What do? You put it in the recycling bin. You probably never even open it. Right?
What are you telling your friend? What's the friend supposed to do?
Your friend has gotten spam email before. They're going to delete it.
But I mean, how are they going to stop sending? I keep getting it from a out-of-state family member. I keep getting the same kind of thing. How does she, what should she be doing?
She needs to talk to, usually what happens, and this happens a lot with AOL, which is why I made the comment I did earlier. AOL gets hacked a lot. It's really easy to break into. So it's really easy to send out email through your address books. What will typically happen is this will go on for 2 to 3 weeks, and then it will stop because they've used up your pool of people, and they're going to move on to other pools of people. They'll come back around later. If it's a persistent problem, then they need to change the password on their account, step 1. Step 2, they may have to close their account and open a different one. But there's very little that your service provider can do. Honestly, it's too, because frequently that problem is coming from another part of the world, very difficult to trace.
I get email from a man who's been dead for 2 years, selling some company that sells Viagra out of Canada. Mm-hmm. I still get emails from Marsh.
All of your software has the ability to create what are called rules. This is true on Windows, Mac, online systems. And and you can set up a rule that says if the person sending it is this, or if they have the word Viagra in the subject, or whatever it is, just delete it. I don't even need to see it. So one thing we're not going to be able to accomplish here is for me to teach every variant of an email program that exists out there. There's at least 30 that I know of. So with the knowledge that you can do this, it's worth investigating a little bit further. Go into the help menus of your program. Google it. Find out how you can write a rule that, or a junk rule that automatically says, oh, I know that's bad. The other thing is that most modern email programs, and this is Apple's Mail, Outlook, Nighthawk, and there's a bunch of others, actually automatically learn your preferences for what is spam or junk mail and what is good. And what will happen is that they'll get the tags from your email provider the email provider will say, we think this is junk. We're not sure, so we're going to tell you that we think it's junk. And your email program will say, okay, they said it was junk, so I'm going to mark it that way, but still show it to you. And you can tell me whether you actually meant to see this or not. And if you say, nope, it's junk, it'll start to learn. And if you say, no, 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 that person's legit. I know it may look funny, but that's legitimate. The computer will actually learn your preferences. And after about a month or so, we'll say, okay, I'm ready to take over. And it will start filtering the mail for you. Now, if a friend of yours calls and says, did you get my email? And you didn't, you need to go look in your junk folder. And that's why it's there, so you can go back. But generally, it's just to get it out of your way, because it's junk. So there's a lot of things to deal with there. And email you didn't ask for is a fact of life. There is one way to be fairly sure and I will not even say absolutely sure, that you won't get any. And that is that some services, such as Earthlink, allow you to set a setting on your email account that whenever I send a message to Bill the first time, it says, I don't know you, but do you want to request that Bill allow you to send email to him? And I say, sure. And then Bill gets an email and it says, do you want to get mail from Rick Wilson? And he says, yes. Now he gets my emails. But he has to approve or deny every single thing that comes through. Not every time. Every future email from Rick Wilson from that one email address is fine. As soon as I send it from a different email address, and I have 6, for example, he has to approve it again. So if you're that concerned, you can go that far. But the delete key works really, really well. And the delete key means you don't even have to look at it. You just get rid of it. Okay, this one doesn't really apply to this room, but we'll put it up here. People who look for children to harm often don't get caught until they've hurt at least 30 children. What do you think? True. That's true. Anonymity, a wonderful feature of the internet, is also a problem of the internet. This is the bargain we make. And so we protect ourselves. And with our children, if they have not yet learned how to properly behave on the internet, then we watch over them. If with clients with small children, they say, you know, we're setting up a new computer, I say, oh, good, we're going to put this in the family room or in the kitchen, right? They're like, oh, no, 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 we want it in this back room. I'm like, no, you don't. Because you haven't taught your children yet how to behave on the internet. You need to have it out where you see it. You see something funny, they'll spot. Something to think about. And our last one. Criminals and terrorists are sending encrypted messages in photos as forwards being mass mailed around the world. True. Absolutely true. This encoding messages in pictures goes back easily to the 1500s. It's an old form of cryptography. So we gave them wonderful tools in this digital imagery in that we can encode data in there that actually doesn't shows up in the photograph, but with the proper decoding ability does show up. We also have the ability to fully encrypt messages, items, even our entire computers. There was a news story today about a woman in Colorado who is being required by the court to deliver an unencrypted copy of her computer to the court because she has what is called whole disk encryption on her computer. So they're subpoenaing it unencrypted. They decided not to go down the route of subpoenaing her password because that has a whole bunch of legal ramifications, but they said, no, you've got to give us a copy that's unencrypted. Will it be a full copy? It's going to be hard to tell. But encryption is your friend in a lot of places. It's your friend when you're buying online because you want your data encrypted. Your address, your social security number, your credit card number, whatever it is. But it also means if we want that, then there are going to be people who are doing things we don't particularly like, who are using the same technology to not get caught. It's a dance. Okay. So let's go fishing. This is an email I received Monday, and I was very sad to find out that I've lost my accountant's license. Any of you who know me well knows that I have no business being around accounting at all. I'm a terrible accountant. I've actually received 12 completely different emails with this same message. Different sender, different reason. I keep losing my accountant's license. Let's go back to that. But the key thing about this is, of course I know this is baloney, right? There is no business, they have no business sending me information. So I'm just going to delete it. That's common sense. The one that really bugs me right now is that I keep getting spam from the Better Business Bureau. And it's not from the Better Business Bureau, but I'm a small businessman, so technically it could be from the Better Business Bureau, so I have to look every time. It's really annoying. So far, it never has been, so I'm grateful for that. Well, how do I know that an email that could legitimately be for me isn't? Well, here's one of those things. If you click here, if you click right there, it's going to take you where they want you to go. But if you just hover your mouse over this and don't click, you're going to get this. It's going to show you an address, and below it's going to show you where it's really going to take you. One of the things we do on a regular basis in emails from this church, on the website, or whatever, it says click here, directions to the church, and it's a link, it's underlined. You're not going to the website, directions to the church. You're going where we want you to go on Google Maps, and here's the whole thing. It's a legitimate tool. But if you look at it, it's going to tell you, well, really what I'm doing is I'm taking you to Google Maps, blah, 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 blah. In this case, Woodgrove Bank, that could be your bank, but if you click on it, you find out maybe that's not where it's going. So instead of clicking there and going there and finding out potentially you're in a bad place, and by the way, it may look really good. We're going to go there next. Just hover over it and see if it's going somewhere that makes any sense. If it doesn't, ask a friend or search around. Other things that you will not find from a legitimate company. They will not threaten you. We are concerned about your account. Please contact us. They will not say, and we are going to close your account in 3 days. If a bank's going to close your account in 3 days, they're not sending you email. They're sending you registered letters or people to your door. Okay? So that's baloney. Allegra's favorite one, spelling. Now, it's true that a lot of legitimate companies have bad spelling too, but it's really amazing how bad the grammar and spelling can be in an email sent by a non-legitimate person. You know, they're trying to find ways around things, and frequently, I'm sorry, but it's true, the education isn't where it should be. And so they write really poorly, and you read it and go, yeah, this did not come from Bank of America or Google or wherever. And then the other one is you have to make sure that, you know, Facebook Copyrights Department, I mean, popular company, that's okay. I'm not sure why they pointed that one out.
Because they wouldn't put it that way.
Well, that's true.
From Facebook with the logo, it wouldn't be Facebook Copyright Department. There's no such thing.
But a lot of people would know that there wasn't a Facebook Copyright Department. So that one takes a little more thinking. Now, Bank of America. Important site. They require double identification for you to get into your bank account. So great. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in my first set of ID. Looks great. There's my logo. There's all the stuff I should see. But there's a problem. www.bofamerica.co.cc. Wait a minute. Bank of America does not have an address like this. They don't have a CC address, which is, I'm trying to remember where CC is. It's a form, there are some that are country codes. And also right here, to the left of the address, is a little icon, it says co.cc. Any large company is going to have their logo right there. I'm not a large company, and I have my logo there. So you look at that, and before you go anywhere, you go, what is that? Look around before you click. And you're on the site, you even think it's legitimate, hover over some of these things and find out if they're real. That's the thing that we're really concerned about right there. Now again, look at the site, looks really good. This is what Bank of America actually looks like. So if you think about it, not too bad. I mean, they've got a different graphic here, but that could just be the graphic of the week. But they've done a fair job. I've seen better, but it's still, now this is legitimate. By the way, this is called phishing with a PH, because we do funny things on the internet, also with a PH. But it's called phishing because they're putting it out there and seeing who will bite.
Have you ever seen any of the false stuff end up using HTTPS, the secure?
No.
You've never seen them?
I have never seen one that got away with an S. Correct. That's one of the things we want to look at. Let's go back here for a sec. Now, what he was just asking about, and this is one of the things I want you to find out about. We've all seen HTTP//. Very, very common. Occasionally you'll see other things here like FTP. But the key one I want you to see is that there's a letter S here. Anywhere you go where your data is encrypted, banks, always. Shopping, hopefully. Certainly PayPal, for example. Will always have an S there. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure. Secured. You'll also see a lock in the icon bar. So let's see. If we go to the legitimate B of A site, HTTPS, and actually it's not in this picture, but there should be a lock to the right on this one. We don't see the whole index bar in this particular picture. Look for the S if you're concerned. Make sure it's legitimate.
Like, don't enter your credit card number unless there is.
Right. Don't enter your credit card number unless you see the S, unless you see the padlock, unless you feel that you're in the legitimate place. Once you are, you're going ahead with a sense of true security. But what it takes to get that S is a lot of background work. You have to be checked up and down to get that hypersecure site. And obviously, they're going to go through the trouble to do it. Anybody who's going to ask for your money is going to go through the trouble to do it. Most places don't come up with their own way to collect your money. They let somebody else collect your money on their behalf because it's so much trouble to actually try to get it through to your bank on your own. That's why there's so many really easy ways. If you have a website, Google does it, Square does it. Almost every web provider has a service that they use, a shopping cart service that is secure. Because, great, they've already done the security work, they've already done all the programming, let them take care of it. Now here's another one that's kind of fun. This is called Fishtank, again with the PH. And if you go to fishtank.org, you can put in any website and they'll tell you how legitimate it is. They've been tracking them. Google also has a tracker like this, but unfortunately they've made it very hard to use. You actually have to put in the whole Google web address followed by the web address of the place you want to go. They don't have a nice front-end interface for it. So Fishtank did it. So if you ever are wondering about the place you're going, just go up into the address bar at the top, select that address, copy it, go to Fishtank, paste it in, and they'll tell you, legitimate or not. So that's all about phishing. Everybody's favorite subject, viruses. Okay. In your packets, you've got descriptions of what viruses and worms, Trojan horses, all those things are. But we're going to go through it anyways, but I wanted you to know that you have a copy of it there. So viruses and worms, they were the first ones created, and they were actually created by computer programmers at MIT initially and at Cambridge, and it was a game. Let's see if we can get our program onto the other guy's computer, because it was really hard to do then. It's a lot easier to do now. So they just thought it was fun. But then in 1989, a couple of brothers in Hungary who had a software company found out that people were pirating their software a lot. So they actually put a virus in their software that if you registered the software, it deactivated the virus. But if you pirated it, it activated the virus. And it actually would erase information on your computer and put up a little screen that says, "You've stolen this software, ha ha ha," kind of a thing. From there, spread like wildfire. Like we said, now, depending on who you ask, between 200,000 and 1 million known viruses and worms out there. What they can do, sometimes with your help and sometimes without, is get into your computer, and then what they do there depends on the worm. So the difference between a virus and a worm is a virus requires some action on your part. You received an email and you looked at it. You didn't click on anything, you just looked at it. That's all it takes. You can get the virus. A worm requires absolutely no participation on your part at all. Your computer is hooked up to a network and talking to the world, you can get a worm. So this is why, if you have Windows, get virus software and keep it up to date. What they can do once they're in there is anything from sit there dormant until a later time when they get a command to do something, send your information back to the host computer, erase data, change data, grab your address book, grab any credit card numbers they find, any social security numbers they find, whatever they're programmed to do. There are so many variants because there are so many things they could possibly do, and because the computer companies, the software companies find out about them, figure out how to kill them, so they need to make a slight variation, just like real viruses change their DNA so that we have trouble, you're inoculated against the flu this year and you're going to get it next year because it's going to change slightly. Same thing, viruses and worms. Trojan horses. Now, this is the one thing that Apple does have, Trojan horses. And what a Trojan horse is a program or a file that pretends to be something else, something that you want. It's a picture of so-and-so's child, and you want to see the picture, or their new dog, or you wanted to get a copy of Microsoft Word, but you didn't want to pay $100 for it, so you found a place you could download it. And surprise, it really wasn't Microsoft Word. As soon as you run that, then that'll take you some, it may do something to your computer. The same thing those viruses and worms could do. It could erase the computer, it could grab data, it could wait for a future time. And usually what will happen is it'll run, and then it'll go, oh, it crashed. Bad software, oh, too bad. And you throw it away. It's already done what it needs to do. Now, there's about 10, like I said, now for the Mac. The first 5 that I knew of all came from porn sites. So if I ever had a client that said, yeah, I got this thing, and I go, uh-huh, I know where you've been. But that's not entirely true anymore. Spam. We've all been talking about it. Unwanted email. But that unwanted email could have in it a Trojan horse or a virus. Spyware. Now, spyware can be legitimately installed on a computer or installed surreptitiously by a Trojan horse or a virus. And what spyware does is it actually watches everything you do, every keystroke you make, every command you send out into the internet, and tracks it and sends it back somewhere else. Now, sometimes this is parental control software. People put it on their kids' computer to track where they're going and what they're doing. And this has a legitimate purpose. But a lot of time it's, you're just entering your information. You've gone to B of A's secure site. You type in your identifier. Guess what? They're catching every keystroke. You go to, put in your final password. They're capturing the keystrokes. It doesn't matter how secure B of A does. They're capturing it before it ever gets there. So, want to be on the lookout for that. And Norton and Sophos and Symantec. No, who's the other one I'm missing? Integros, McAfee, they look for this because this is the eventual process that comes after some of the earlier bad things we saw. Cookies. Now, cookies are the bane of some people's existence, but in truth, they can be very useful. So this is, again, where common sense comes into play. What a cookie is that a website, you go to Amazon, perfect example. You get a lot of cookies at Amazon. You go to Amazon, and you go in there, and you search for books by Tom Clancy. Now, even if you don't have an account at Amazon, Amazon knows that you searched for Tom Clancy and leaves a cookie on your computer that said, by the way, authors, Tom Clancy. Later on, you go and you look for Virginia Woolf, that's the title of the book, another author, and they're going to tag it onto that cookie. So that the next time you go back, what happens to show up in your favorite, in the advertisements over here is the latest Tom Clancy novel or the latest Steele novel or whatever it is. That's how they make their money. That advertising and getting you to say, ooh, that's really cool, is how they make their money. Amazon's brilliant at it, and people say, well, it's really creepy that they know what I like to listen to, what I like to watch, what books all those things. And you say, well, that can be one side of the coin. And if you flip the coin, you're not getting ads for diapers, right? You're not getting ads for things that you don't care about. Because all these little cookies are saying, no, they don't care about camping. They don't care about smoking. And they don't care about vintage airplanes, whatever it is. So don't even bother to show it to them because they're just going to ignore that advertisement. So in reality, it really is up to how you feel about it, pure and simple. It's either really creepy that they're tracking me or really good that I don't have to deal with all that stuff I don't want to. I wish commercials were that way, right? There's commercials I'd watch because I'm interested in the products, and other ones are like, please, do I have to watch this one again? Oh, he went away. So cookies are there, and they're stored in your browser, and every browser, if you go in through security, going through preferences and security, you will find that you can remove the cookies. You can remove them all. You can remove just select ones. You can look through and say, okay, Amazon, you're okay. Google, you're okay. But Bob's House of Fish, I don't want you tracking me, and you can delete their website. The other thing your software all has the ability to do is deny all cookies. I don't want anybody leaving a cookie on my computer. Ask me whenever they want to leave a cookie, or accept them from places I've gone. Okay. So we've talked about the things that can happen to you without your knowledge and how to try to protect against them. This is one that's happening with your knowledge, and it's frightening how easy it is to get through. The strength of the lock you buy at Lowe's depends on what it is you're locking up. Right? You have a little lock on your luggage because you're probably not taking anything, you're hopefully not taking anything in your luggage that would ruin your life if it went away. But the stuff you're putting in your safety deposit box has an awesome lock on it. And there's a reason for that. These are the top 20 passwords as of 2011. And if you see yours there, don't say it. I love that Nicole and Monkey are in there, and Jessica is. A third of these are common names. The top services that can hack passwords can hack over 100,000 passwords a second. So if it is in the dictionary, they're going to find it really fast. If it's a string of numbers or letters in sequence, they're going to find it really fast. I'll actually show you one of these in action if you want to see it. So what do you do about this? Well, again, if it's, for example, at our house we have a password that's known by everybody and it's really lightweight. But what's behind it is nothing to worry about. It's stuff that we all need to get to. So we made that choice. The length of your password matters a lot. And that is because there are 255 potential characters that could be in any one of these spaces of your password. So every time you add another one, you add an order of magnitude on how hard it's going to be to crack that password. 26%, 6 characters, 20%, 8 characters, 90%, 7 characters. So most common is 6 characters. That can be hacked in less than 2 seconds. I can guarantee you. Now, how do we get around that? If it's all in uppercase or all in lowercase, it's going to hack easy. But if it's a combination of both, you've just increased the random factor by a huge amount. Sequential numbers, bad, but if you include numbers in your password as well as letters, as well as symbols, asterisk, star, pound, whatever, you increase the complexity. So how do you create a strong password? And this is in your packets. Take it home and use it. 8 to 14 characters. A lot of people complain right now that if you have to create a new ID for Apple, it must be a minimum of 8 characters. It must have a capital letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a symbol. And you go, oh, it's too much trouble. As soon as by doing that, they increase the complexity so far that it's really, really difficult to hack. Use a variety of characters. Exactly what we just discussed. This is a great one. Favorite phrase or lyric. You know, what's your favorite song? Right? What's the first line of your favorite song? And take the first letter of every word and make that your password. All of a sudden you have a complete nonsense password. We can't remember nonsense passwords. We can't remember those numbers we saw at the internet sites at the beginning. But we can remember it if it's Amazing Grace, How Sweet the Sound. Or Light a Rose, I'm Home Again Rose, whatever it is. It gets even better. Now, it's a little long. You might want to cut it down, but still, it's nonsense without knowing where it came from. And you see, I went ahead and capitalized a little bit to make it even better. If I want to make it stronger, we can substitute numbers for certain letters. Letter S looks like a number what? 5. And L looks like the number. Exactly. So in this case, maybe that's our password. Really hard to remember, unless you understand that it's that lyric, and oh, by the way, whenever I see a T, I'm going to put a plus, and an S, I'm going to put a 5, or whatever it is. That's a hard password to crack. And if we want, I'll program it into the password cracker, and we'll see how long it would theoretically take to crack that. This is the cracker I was talking about. This is called LastBit, and they make data recovery software. And they make password recovery software, because sometimes people really do have encrypted data, and something happens. Either they legitimately forget how they encrypted it, or the key gets damaged and they can't unencrypt it. Sometimes these guys can get it. So what they've got here at the bottom is a little calculator that allows us to find out really how long it would take to crack. So I'm going to switch over to, this is just a picture, I'm going to switch over to the actual website and we'll take a look at what that would take. Let me blow this up here. Let's see. Okay. Everybody see that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a password length of 5 characters. 500,000 passwords a second. If you can crack 100,000 a second with one computer, with 5 you can do 500,000. You know, whatever it is. So here they've said 500,000 on one computer. Characters just in lowercase. And it will take up to a minute to crack the password. So let's just take that and go to our 8-character password that people want. And it's going to take 5 days to crack that password on that one machine. Of course, if I throw 100 machines on it, it's going to get a lot faster. Now, let's say we're going to include those uppercase characters. We're going to include those digits, and even just common punctuation. Whoops. 58 years to find all the possible combinations till they find that password. 58 years. We did one that we had 2 more variations, and we got up to it was 150,000 years or something like that. So doing a little bit of work on stuff that's important will really benefit you. Now, at the bottom there, I don't know if you saw it, it said, by the way, you should have bought a password manager. Because to be able to remember all those passwords, because you may have more than one. I don't know about you, but I have about 200 or 300 because of the different places and things I do. I have to have a ton of passwords. I can't possibly remember them all unless they're all the same. So I use a password manager. This is called 1Password. There's a number of them out there. But what's really brilliant about this is it hooks directly into your browser, whatever it is, and watches. And when you type in a password, it says, ooh, do you want me to remember that for you? And when you go sign up at a new place or you go to change your password, it says, oh, I'll help you create a really good password, one you'll never remember, trust me. And you put in the variables you want, and it'll generate a bunch of passwords until you're happy with it, and then you say, use that one, and it fills it in for you. And it remembers it for you. And then when you go back to Bank of America, you just click on the little icon at the top there, and it fills in all your data for you. You don't have to remember these weird passwords. But you know that you have a greater level of security. And by the way, the data file they use to hold your passwords is 256 bits of encryption. And that calculates out to, if we use our password cracker, somewhere in the quadrillions of years. It's really, really good encryption on purpose. So this is the other part of security. Deliberately keeping yourself hard to touch. So, yes?
What are the things, I know banking and you're going to buy something, you want a tricky password.
Sure.
Okay, what about email or Facebook or the dentist, MedLife, that stuff?
Definitely your health records, I'd want a fairly secure password. But yeah, if you're logging back into FTD Florists, you don't need a tricky password. If somebody hacks it, good luck with that one. I mean, what are you going to do with it?
Did you ever use Global Form?
Global Form, I don't know that. What is that?
It's a password to remember.
No, yeah, there are a ton of them out there. I just showed one example of the one I used, but yeah, I don't know that one specifically. But as long as they encrypt your database of passwords, it's a good thing. What I actually do with mine is that you can, we can talk about this later, but some of you have heard of a service called Dropbox. Really great way to have a folder that can show up on any computer, on any phone, on any iDevice, whatever it is, Android, whatever. And it's all the same folder. So anything you put in that folder is everywhere automatically without you doing any hard work. That's where my password file lives. So that it doesn't matter if I just change my passwords on my computer and I go over and I pick up my iPad, it already knows what the new passwords are. And will actually include those in my work. So that's where I've gone to at this point, and now it's open to what I missed and what you'd like to know.
Well, with the password remember, can somebody pick up your iPad and get into that file and know your passwords?
They'd have to know the passwords it takes to get into my password program. Yeah, it's protected as well. So I have a good password I use for that,
Okay.
and then begin. And in your computers, there's also a file that keeps any common passwords you told your browser to remember. Have you ever gone to a site like Facebook and there's a little checkbox that says, remember my password? That's stored in your browser, or it's stored in your computer in a file. That file can be gotten to, but you have to know the password to get into that file. And even when you get into that file with the password, and you click on, go down to Facebook, find it, okay, show me the password, you got to put in another password to see it. So it's very well hidden. But it's there. It's really great when I go to somebody's house and I say, okay, what's your password for Bob's House of Fish? And they go, I don't know. I'll go, hold on. I'll go look, and sure enough, I'll find Bob's House of Fish.
Can you create a password so anybody cannot pick up your iPad and open it and make it work?
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
Okay. If you have an iDevice, and this also works on a lot of Android devices, here, I'll hook up and we'll show you directly. Losing my little thing here. Okay. Okay. Wait till that syncs. Yes, I've been watching the whole slideshow here. And before I go anywhere else, I'm going to lock the screen so I don't make anybody sick. I remember that from last time. Okay, if you go into the settings of your phone or whatever device you have, you will usually find, if we look down into on the iDevices it's in general. On the Androids it's in a different place, but they do have a password lock. So you'll notice about right here, we have passcode lock. So I go in there, and it says, okay, I'm going to say turn the passcode on, and it's going to say, okay, put in a passcode. Now at this point, they're asking for a 4-digit passcode. So I'll put one in, there we go, and then I'll put in this one, and I'll say, ha, didn't work. Do it again, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not secure password, okay. But I got it right 2 times in a row, so now I've locked it. It's going to ask, require the password immediately. So as soon as I turn it off, turn it back on, and I say, I want to go there. I have to put in the passcode. Or you have the ability to say, no. Let's go back in here. Wrong one. Here we go. Now, require password after a minute, after 5 minutes. Give yourself a little bit of a delay. Sometimes you will turn it off and then immediately go, oh, shoot, I forgot to. So give yourself at least 1 minute before this thing locks. Because you're not going to have somebody picking up your iPad and trying to get into it in a minute. Require the passcode, the same thing. If it goes to sleep by itself, how quickly afterwards. Now, on the bottom here is a great one. Erase data. If they put in the wrong passcode 10 times, it'll erase the device completely. So that even if they stumble around the right password, won't matter, all of your stuff's gone. And if you've been syncing with your computer, you can get it all back. But remember, sync regularly. Now, the other thing you can do is, you see I have simple passcode turned on, that's the default. If I turn that off, now I can have a passcode that's as long and as complex as I want. Letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, symbols, anything. So most people are getting in and out of their phones and their devices fast, and they just want a quick. But if you want even more security, use this. Turn that off. Okay, and go. Okay, other questions? Ellen.
I got an email from someone who was phishing, and they wanted to direct me to the Earthlink, my account page to update my credit card. And I don't pay Earthlink through Earthlink, I pay through Time Warner. Because I got one of those bundle deals. So, but the link actually went to the Earthlink website. And so I went on a chat session with an employee there.
Right.
And believe it or not, I was in the chat box for 45 minutes with this guy who just kept telling me to have a good day and he wanted to help me. And, finally, he said that it was spam and that he was going to report it, but that I still had to go and update my credit card information even though I'm not paying Earthlink directly.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of variations that it's hard to know in that specific one where to go, but here's the easy answer whenever it comes to your passwords, your accounts, or anything else. If I get an alert from B of A, I will, even if I think it's a legitimate B of A email, I will not click on anything in the email. I will go to B of A, I will log in myself, my way, and if they have something to ask me or tell me, they'll do it as soon as I log in. That's the #1 way you can tell if something's good or bad. You can investigate the links, you can do a bunch of stuff, but if you just go there yourself without using their method, go there your own way, you'll know whether there's a legitimate issue or not. So that, I mean, did you actually go and look at Earthlink?
I did, and...
did it ask you to update your information there?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't figure out where my credit card.
Well, that's between the combination between your cable provider and Earthlink. I don't know, but that's a great security way. Just go there yourself.
For a couple of weeks, we've been getting an email that says we weren't able to deliver your message,
Yeah.
but there's the thing that they said they couldn't deliver is total gibberish, and we can't find a way to make it stop, and we have no idea. It bears no resemblance to anywhere we've done.
And unfortunately, you're probably not going to be able to kill it at its source. So the best way is to create one of the rules we talked about and say, when I get an email from this, just get rid of it for me. I don't want to deal with it. Virginia.
I think this is probably a common problem. In trying to get into my Bank of America account, as long as you're talking about passwords.
Sure.
I know I have put the right password in, and yet it comes back and says that it's incorrect. I try it a second time, it comes back the same way. If I wait several hours and then go back and try to get into my bank account, then it works. Well, what's the reason for them not accepting it?
There may be some interruption in the line, so they're having trouble. If they get too much data traffic, they can have trouble receiving the information. And you may be sending the right thing, but it's not getting, for whatever reason, all the way to them correctly. The other thing that happens, and this has been happening, it happened a lot with Facebook for a while, it's been better lately, but their password database was getting corrupted. And you were putting in absolutely the right thing, and you'd do it the next day, and you'd put in absolutely the right thing, and it still wouldn't work, and you'd have no choice but to reset it. So, it is definitely frustrating.
The other thing to make sure is that you don't have your caps lock on. Yeah. Sometimes people think they hit the shift key and they hit the caps lock key, and then it doesn't show you, it just shows you those little dots. But what you're actually putting in is capital letters instead of small case letters, and so it tells you typed in the wrong password. And most sites won't tell you, check your caps lock key.
The other thing that happens, and that's absolutely true. Sometimes in the password box, if you have the caps lock key on it, it will actually give you the symbol of the caps lock in the box, but not all the time. It depends on the site. The other thing that I forgot to mention here, and it's just absolutely essential for everything we talk about, is there is absolutely nothing stupider in the world than a computer. Stupider than a computer. It knows yes and no, and that's it. Everything else in there is a complex series of yes and no. Every number is a series of yes and no. So all it takes is one wrong answer out of a million, and your password won't work. It's really easy for some things to get corrupted. So sometimes, I've 2 times this week, I went and either had to, in one case it was the computer, and in the other case it was the router for a person. I had to reset a setting that I was absolutely 100% certain that the client couldn't have gotten to. They didn't have the knowledge, or even they couldn't have tricked themselves into getting there. But the setting in there, when I went in, was flat out wrong, was not the way I left it. So I went and fixed it. And I had to look at them and go, I can't explain it. Computers are stupid. And unfortunately, that means sometimes we got to get in there and wiggle around with it. But that's always key in this. We'll go here and then there.
Simple question. And if we have a Mac, then we're not apt to get, at this point, viruses.
At this point, correct.
We're not apt to get worms at this point.
At this point.
But we should be worried about the spyware. We could
the Trojan horses, yeah.
Trojan horses and cookies.
Yeah, everybody gets cookies.
Okay.
Everybody gets cookies, and hopefully they're good cookies. But you really have to decide what's worth it for you. I go here and then over there.
My aunt has an iPad, and she wanted to know if you can underline words when you.
At what point? In a word processing or in an email?
Email.
In the latest version, you can. They just added that.
And that's iPad 2, or is there?
No, it's iOS 5.01. You have to keep your software up to date, but you now can do what's called rich text formatting in email. And you can bold things and underline things and color things.
So she could update her iPad.
Absolutely. Her iPad 1 goes all the way up to the latest software, and there'll be another version of the software coming out in 2 weeks. So it'll just do more cool stuff.
Are you familiar with MacKeeper?
Yes.
Does it do anything for security? I know it would test, and it checks security. I know that's not its primary purpose, but does it throw out Trojan Horse, for instance?
I'm not 100% certain about that. I mean, it certainly does check for corruption and duplicate files and things like that. My biggest problem with MacKeeper is that it's a bundle of programs that you can get the ones you specifically want cheaper and better elsewhere. And secondly, when they first came out with it, that was one of the biggest Trojan horses there was MacKeeper. And it wasn't them on purpose, but nevertheless, I had a lot of clients get infected by MacKeeper. They're okay now, but it was a problem for a while.
Kind of a more general question, but something I dealt with for a little while in January. I have the Uverse package.
Sure.
And I was having a problem with connecting with the router with my Mac. I have a PC that I was using that was having a problem connecting with the Mac wouldn't connect, even though it had been connecting in December. And I struggled with it for several days because I thought, well, this must be simple. I can go on the internet. I spent, unfortunately, days trying to find solutions. Have you heard of this kind of
Yes.
happen?
Yeah, partially because, so we're getting into a specific area here now, but there's a number of different types of encryption that you use in your connections to your router. And you were doing a wireless connection?
Yes.
Yes, okay. One of the default connection method for Uverse is WEP, which is an old type of encryption that's easily cracked and it's very unstable. And so if you were using a WEP encryption, your PC loved it and your Mac hated it, because it's a very well-known issue. You had to go to a higher level of encryption to get the Mac happy. The Macs actually will not go down to WEP anymore. It's so unstable.
I think it's a WPA.
Is it WPA too?
But
Then that should have done better.
The
Yeah.
solution that I read about several solutions on the internet, and then I decided to follow the directions of several people, and it's called AT&T. And the first tech I spent 2 hours with, and we got lost in the forest for the trees. Second tech, he was a level 2 tech,
Sure.
said, when was the last time you booted your router? And I said, well, I've been involved with remodeling and moving around things, and I probably forgot. I said, I have no idea. He said, try that. And it worked.
There you go.
But what does that mean?
Well, okay, so how many of you had a TV that you used to whack up alongside when it was misbehaving and it worked better, right? You used to kick the machine. The modern equivalent of kicking the machine is turn the power off.
Right.
So pull the power cord out of the back of it. Turn off the switch it's attached to, and then turn it back on. A modern device will not lose your data when you do this, but it'll just get a fresh, clean start. Daria left. When Daria showed up today, her iPad, one screen of the icons were shifted to the left, and you couldn't click on any of them. And then I just had her just restart it, and everything came back. So computers are stupid. Routers have computers in them. Oh, Daria, did it work, restarting your iPad?
Yes.
There you go. We did absolutely nothing but give it a fresh, clean start. Same data, same everything, but somewhere along the line, somebody got upset, one bit got flipped, everything moved.
You need to sleep too, right?
Huh?
You need to sleep too.
Right, well, that's true. I don't do it very well, but you're right.
Is this a reboot?
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, a restart of your computer is not the same as a shutdown and startup of your computer. So if you really just aren't sure what's happening, and I'll do this frequently with clients when they call, say, have you restarted the computer? No? Okay, do that while I wait. Oh, look, everything's fine. Okay, thank you, off we go. I'm not going to go out and just restart their computer. It's the absolute first solution. And you go and think of it backwards. I have my computer, I have my wireless router, and then I have my DSL modem or cable modem or whatever it is that gives you your internet. So turn them all off. And like a plumber, start at the beginning. Internet enters my house here. I'm going to turn that one on. And when it's up and happy, I'm going to go to the next thing, and I'm going to turn it on. And then I'm going to go to the next thing until I've gotten back to my machine. And it's amazing how often that works. I got called to the church on Sunday morning because the internet in the sanctuary was down and they couldn't figure it out. And I said, here, try this, try this. No, it didn't work. It turns out that we have a little switch downstairs in the choir room under the desk that somebody had kicked with their foot and turned off the power. And the only way I could figure it out was to just trace back, well, it comes into the building here. Oh, that's fine. Goes here. Oh, look, no lights, click, everything was on. But everything else behind it looked great. It was doing all the right stuff, but it just didn't work. So sometimes it's just turn it off, turn it on, everybody's happy. Any other questions? All right, so was this enough today? Would you want to go on to social media next time? Is that good? Okay, so we're, the second Wednesday of March is a day. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but we'll meet back here at 12:30. If you want to order lunch before you come, check in at the office. They have a sign-in sheet, and you can order a sandwich. And I hope you learned something today.
No, 14th.
The 14th of March? Yeah, March.
2 weeks from today?
Well, the second Wednesday of the month. 14th.
Yeah, so it's actually 3 because the next.
Yeah. We'll do the 2nd and the 4th, and just we'll keep going along there as long as we have stuff to talk about. Is this working out for everybody? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, something I forgot to emphasize at the beginning. Bring friends. We have a few few new faces in the room today, but we could use a few more new faces in the room. So please bring your friends. It's free advice. All right.